The tire shop was closing early because of the blizzard, but Jake couldn't shake the image of that little girl's face pressed against the frost-covered window, watching him work on her mother's car earlier that day. She'd been clutching a torn photograph of a doll, the kind every kid in town was begging for that Christmas, and he'd overheard her whispered plea to her mom, "Maybe Santa will remember me this year." Jake Rodriguez had been fixing cars in the small town of Millbrook for 15 years, his hands perpetually stained with grease, his back aching from hours spent under hoods and chassis. At 42, he'd never gotten rich from his work, but he'd earned something more valuable: the trust of a community that knew when their vehicles limped into his shop, they'd limp out running like new. He charged fair prices, often too fair, his wife Maria would say with equal parts exasperation and affection. But Jake couldn't help himself. He'd grown up poor, knew what it felt like to need help and not be able to afford it. The woman and her daughter had come in that morning with a dying transmission, the kind of repair that would cost more than most people had lying around 2 weeks before. Christmas. The mother, Sarah Chen, had looked exhausted in a way that went beyond physical tiredness. Jake recognized that look, the weight of trying to hold everything together while the world kept throwing punches. She'd recently moved to Millbrook, she'd explained, taking a position at the old textile factory that some investment group was supposedly reviving. Single mom, new town, broken car, and a daughter whose eyes held that particular brand of hope that only 7-year-olds can maintain against impossible odds. Jake had given Sarah a price that barely covered parts, telling her to pay when she could. She'd nearly cried, thanking him 3 times before leaving with her daughter, promising to return after her first paycheck. The little girl, Emma, her name was Emma, had waved at him through the window, that photograph of the doll still clutched in her mittened hand, now as snow piled against the shop's windows, and the wind howled like something alive and angry. Jake found himself thinking about that photograph. He'd seen the same doll in the toy store window downtown, its price tag featuring a number that would make most working families wince. He thought about Emma's careful hopefulness, the way she'd said maybe instead of asking directly, already learning to manage expectations at an age when kids should still believe in magic. "You're insane," Maria said when he called her. "Jake, they're saying this is the worst storm in 20 years. The roads are impossible." "I know the roads," he replied, standing in the toy store as the clerk wrapped the doll in festive paper. He'd used money from their emergency fund, the one they'd been building for the leak in their roof. The roof could wait. "I've got the truck. I'll be careful." "It's not about careful. It's about—" Maria paused, and he could hear her sigh, the sound carrying 15 years of loving a man who couldn't pass someone in need. "You have their address?" "I've got it. Take the chains for the tires. And Jake, come home safe. I'd rather have you than be a hero." "I'm not trying to be a hero, Amber. Just a decent human being." The drive to the Maple Street apartments normally took 12 minutes. That night, it took Jake an hour and 40 minutes. His truck crawling through whiteout conditions, the world reduced to the small cone of his headlights and the infinite white beyond. Twice, he nearly turned back. Once, he got stuck and spent 20 minutes digging out with a shovel he kept in the bed. His fingers went numb, then painful, then numb again. The heater in his old truck wheezed and rattled but kept working. Bless its mechanical heart. When he finally pulled into the parking lot of the shabby apartment complex, every muscle in his body ached. The building looked tired, the kind of place people landed when they were rebuilding, starting over or just barely hanging on. He checked the apartment number from his work order, 2B, and grabbed the wrapped present from the passenger seat. The stairwell smelled like old cooking and damp carpet. He climbed to the second floor and knocked, suddenly feeling foolish. What was he doing here? This woman might think he was crazy, or worse, that he wanted something in return. Maybe he should just leave the present outside the door, and the door opened. Sarah stood there in sweatpants and an oversized sweater, her hair pulled back, her face transforming from confusion to recognition to utter bewilderment in the space of 3 seconds. "Jake, Mr. Rodriguez? What are you— how did you—" She stared at him, then at the snow-covered world behind him, then back at him. "Did you drive here in this?" He suddenly felt acutely aware of his snow-covered jacket. his red cheeks the absurdity of the whole situation. I heard Emma talking earlier. About the doll. And I was at the toy store anyway, and I thought he held out the present, feeling more foolish by the second. It's nothing. I just wanted to make sure she had a good Christmas. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. She took the present with shaking hands, staring at it like it was made of something precious and impossible. You drove through a blizzard to bring my daughter a toy? The truck's good in snow, he said lamely. Mama? Emma appeared in the doorway, wearing pajamas covered in stars. Why are you crying? Who's Mr. Jake? Her face lit up. Did you drive through the snow? Are you magic? No magic, mija. Just a truck with good tires. Sarah was crying openly now, and Jake felt panic rising in his chest. He was terrible with crying. Hey, no, please don't. I didn't mean to upset you. You don't understand, Sarah said, laughing through her tears. I've been trying to figure out how to tell Emma that Santa might be light this year, that the move took everything we had, that I started my new job, but the first paycheck doesn't come until after Christmas. I've been breaking my heart, trying to figure out how to help her understand, without breaking hers. She looked at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. And you barely know us. You already gave us a break on the car repair, and you drove through a storm that has the National Guard telling people to stay home, just to bring her a toy. She seemed like a good kid, Jake said simply. Good kids should have good Christmases. Emma had already torn into the wrapping, and her squeal of joy echoed through the hallway. Mama, Mama! It's her! It's the doll! The one from the picture! She launched herself at Jake, wrapping her arms around his legs. Thank you, Mr. Jake. You're the best! Over Emma's head. Sarah mouthed thank you with such intensity that Jake had to look away. He'd done nothing special, not really. Just what anyone would do, should do. Let me make you coffee, Sarah insisted. You can't drive back in this without warming up first. Over coffee? Sitting at their small kitchen table while Emma played with her new treasure, Sarah told him about her new job. Not just any job, it turned out. She'd been hired as the new CEO of Chen Industries, the investment group reviving the textile factory. She'd moved to Millbrook to be hands-on, to rebuild the company from the ground up, to prove she could turn around a failing operation. I wanted Emma to grow up in a real town, not just another suburb, she explained. Somewhere with community, with good people. I think, she looked at him with quiet certainty, I think I found it. 3 months later, the textile factory reopened with 400 new jobs. Sarah hired Jake as the head of the company's fleet maintenance division, quadrupling his salary and giving him a team to lead. He tried to refuse, he loved his small shop, but Maria convinced him. You can do more good helping more people, she said. And maybe we can finally fix that roof. But the job, the money, none of that was really what mattered. What mattered was Emma's Christmas morning squeal, the memory of her joy. What mattered was the reminder that kindness didn't require wealth or power, just the willingness to see someone else's need and do something about it. What mattered was being the kind of person who would plow through a blizzard to deliver hope to a 7-year-old girl, never expecting anything in return, and discovering that sometimes the universe has a way of completing the circle, of rewarding not the deed but the heart behind it.